In Nevada, we refer to domestic violence, and what we usually mean is battery by domestic violence. Battery by domestic violence is an enhanceable offense, which means every time you get a conviction, it increases the penalty range. The first time that you're charged with a battery by domestic violence, you're looking at a minimum of 2, a maximum of 6 months in jail. That comes with other requirements, such as counseling, community service, and fines. The court is the one who decides what that sentence looks like. On a second offense, the mandatory minimum for jail time is 20 days. And it still comes with enhanced counseling, higher fines, and additional requirements imposed by the court. A third offense is a felony. And a felony, battery domestic, for being a third time offense, is punishable by prison time. 1 to 5 years is the range for a third offense. After the third offense, the offenses are still felonies, and the sentences can get harsher. There are other times where penalties are enhanced. For example, for strangulation cases where there's been the use of a deadly weapon, or if there's substantial bodily harm. If you're facing any domestic violence charges, you want to get help from an attorney. A misdemeanor domestic battery in Nevada is punishable by up to 6 months in jail. A felony is punishable by up to 15 years in prison, depending on the enhancements. The more serious the offense, the greater the range of sentence that you're facing. Those are felony charges. Once you hit a third offense or have substantial bodily harm, have a deadly weapon involved, or have strangulation allegations, those are felonies. There's also an enhancement if the victim of the battery is pregnant. Regardless of the level of offense, this is an enhanceable offense. That means every time that it happens, the punishment is going to get harsher. You need help of an attorney who knows how to navigate the domestic violence laws so that you can try and prevent getting those felony charges. I've had cases where people are charged with domestic battery for smacking their girlfriend on the butt after an argument. You can also end up with battery charges from pushing or slapping or punching. All of those are considered battery. But not only that, you could be charged with battery if you throw something and it hits your significant other or your children or someone with that domestic relationship to you. Domestic violence is considered domestic violence because of the relationship, not because of your intent. Substantial bodily harm usually requires a broken bone or loss of consciousness. It's something that actually impacts the person. A red mark would not constitute substantial bodily harm. A broken orbital socket or a broken jaw would. When you use a deadly weapon, that also leads to those felony charges, regardless of whether or not you pull the trigger. In addition to having criminal charges when there's a domestic violence incident, sometimes victims will get a protective order. Courts will issue protective orders to try and prevent contact that could escalate into a violent situation. So if someone applies to the court to get a protective order, and the court believes that there's grounds for that protective order to be issued, it will order that party not show up at that person's residence or work or have any communication with that person. The goal of a protective order is to make sure that both parties stay safe. When there are charges of battery, we look to whether or not the actions were in self-defense. What that means is, did you need to protect yourself from someone else? Was someone else attacking you or threatening you in a way that made you believe you were going to be attacked right then? If so, self-defense is a complete defense to the offense. If your spouse comes after you first and you have to protect yourself or hold them back so that you don't get smacked or kicked, that's self-defense. Whether or not it's self-defense is very, very dependent on the facts of the situation and what was going on at the time. Make sure you let us know what happened so we can determine whether or not your case was in self-defense. If you've been charged with domestic violence, you have a lot on the line. In addition to jail time, there's lingering consequences, including being unable to possess a firearm. Make sure you reach out to an attorney and get the help that you need to fight that case. If you want to give us a call, we're always happy to help.